Let's get more reaction now from Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. He sits on the Senate Foreign Relations and Judiciary Committees. So we're going to get to the trade deal with China in just a moment. But first, I want to get your reaction to the president's announcement on cutting prescription drug prices, Senator.
Well, President Trump just said that he's the one that improved Obamacare, which is actually flat out wrong. He tried over and over to repeal Obamacare when he was president the first time, and House Republicans are moving ahead this week with their bill, which President Trump's asking for, that would cut millions of Americans off of health care. In the last administration, Democrats worked hard to pass legislation that reduces prescription drug prices and caps the out-of-pocket costs for Americans. So President Biden and Democrats in the Senate made significant progress in capping and reducing drug prices in the last Congress. If this executive order has a positive impact on health care and on health care costs, that would be a good thing. But so far, the record of what happened in the first Trump administration and what Republicans are trying to move forward right now in Congress would do the opposite, throw millions of Americans off of health care as they make deep cuts to Medicaid.
All right, lots to discuss with you. I also want to get to what's going on the trade front and the result of talks in Geneva this weekend. This comes as the U.S., as you know, is still pushing other countries to impose their own trade restrictions on China. Do you think the U.S. has the leverage to build a coalition of trade partners to stand up to China?
Well, you used a word there that's important, a coalition. I've always thought that America is safer, stronger, more prosperous when we work in concert with our trusted allies and partners. I recently traveled on a trip to the Philippines and Taiwan, where on a bipartisan trip, the message was reinforced that instead of slapping tariffs on our trusted partners and allies, we should be working closely with them, particularly those like Taiwan that's already announced a $100 billion investment in manufacturing in the United States before Trump began his chaotic campaign of tariffs on all of our partners and friends. Yes, I think the United States can make a real difference in mobilizing the world to constrain China's aggression, to push back on China's intellectual property theft, and to build a latticework of partners in the Indo-Pacific that'll strengthen security. That's what happened under the Biden administration. As President Trump leaves on his first overseas trip, I think it's important that we recognize he has really strained our most important alliances in Europe and the Indo-Pacific. He has a chance to strengthen and deepen some of our partnerships in the Middle East. But note that he's not going to Israel. And some of the things he's recently done, negotiating a ceasefire with the Houthis without including or consulting Israel, negotiating with Iran without consulting or including Israel, have strained that critical relationship. So I'll be watching closely in coming days as he visits Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar. But frankly, the piece of his upcoming trip that concerns me the most is news that he will accept a $400 million gift from the Emir of Qatar. It raises obvious national security and ethics concerns for our president to accept a gift of this size for something as important as Air Force One, which is his flying command post from another country.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. Do you think that he is violating the Constitution with this? And will your committee, the Judiciary Committee, be overseeing this, investigating it?
Look, the Republicans control the Senate, and so we will have a hard time getting the majority on the Judiciary Committee to agree that we should be investigating whether this is a violation of a clause of the Constitution that says we should not accept gifts from foreign princes, kings, and potentates, the Emoluments Clause. This is almost exactly the sort of gift that our founders had in mind that Americans shouldn't accept. And I'll remind you, other federal employees can't accept even $50. They can't accept anything from a foreign agent of a foreign country, but they can't accept anything worth more than $50 from a lobbyist or from an American, let alone $400 million. And the details of this deal are not transparent. As it's been reported, the intention is to give it not just for the president's use while he's president, but then to his future library so that he can continue to fly around in this plane. It's apparently a luxurious, modern 747, but the President of the United States already has two versions of Air Force One, which has important national security features to defend the plane against attack, to be able to manage our global military in the event of a crisis. And there's no way to guarantee that this plane, even though Qatar is a trusted partner and ally, there's no way to guarantee this plane doesn't have devices embedded within it that might compromise our security.
So you're concerned about that. We know that DOD would have an active role in retrofitting it. It would take a while for it to be ready for use, presidential use. I want to go to something else you mentioned, and that is, of course, what's going on in the Middle East. The president skipping going to Israel on this trip. To bring everyone up to speed, the last known living American hostage, Edon Alexander, is being released today. Hamas says they conducted direct negotiations with the U.S. on his role. What do you think about that?
Look, it's good news anytime another hostage is released from the brutal captivity of Hamas in Gaza. And I worked with 25 senators to send a letter to President Trump before he departs today to say, use your leverage, use your leadership in the Middle East to secure a ceasefire, to get humanitarian aid into Gaza.